Relax, take several deep breaths, and just rest in the presence, let go, and hold space while the music plays for the next 10 minutes or so. Namaste.
You're welcome.
Welcome to our weekly global online satsang. Satsang means basically spiritual community in Sanskrit. Literally, it means community of truth. So we're talking about a spiritual community of people who are seeking the truth, which is reality, which is awakening. So what brings us all together is that we're on the path of awakening and the flowering of the heart. We come from different places in the world, different continents, different countries, different spiritual belief systems and backgrounds, different spiritual teachers and teachings. But we have in common more than differentiates us, because we are experiencing awakening into unity with the divine and with all that is. We already are, actually, one with all that is and one with the divine source. But most of us are living in an illusory, in a dream, really, of being separate, of being far from the divine, of being far from enlightened or awakened. And that's the dream that we need to wake up from. The idea that we're separate from anything. We are already, in our deepest essence, one with the divine and one with all that is. Also, we're not bodies and we're not minds, but this one divine being, which we often call simply the presence, is expressing itself through all the myriad forms of the universe, including 7.5 billion approximately human beings. And while many of us feel like we're separate beings, unique and distinct from one another, our bodies are distinct, our minds are distinct, the story of our lives is unique, but the being that is experiencing that is aware of it and expressing itself through us, is one and the same. So when we go deep enough inside, you see yourself looking back at you through my eyes. And me too. I look into your eyes and I see myself looking back at me. Or I think more to the point, I see the divine source itself gazing back at me through your eyes. And I'm very grateful for that. And that's why we come together, because the degree that we touch into that place of oneness, that we have tapped into that vast interior silence where there's space and there's no time and there are no thoughts distracting us, there's pure awareness. The deeper we go into that, I don't even know what I was going to say, the better it gets. Yeah. So, okay. But you're not a body, and you're not a mind, and you're not separate. And you, in your essence, are already fully awakened and fully the divine itself. And glad to meet you here. So we share throughout these webcast satsangs the Flowering Heart Blessing, which is a transmission of divine awareness, light, grace, unconditional love, that does a number of things, but first of all and central to its intent from the divine is to awaken our hearts, our spiritual hearts, to begin to experience directly and deeply our oneness with the divine and our true awakened nature. The Flowering Heart Blessing goes right to the heart of things and begins to cause the light in our hearts to begin to flower and expand and radiate outward from the core of our being, where the divine dwells within us already, which is our true nature, which is our essence. And it begins to radiate outward, first of all, filling our spirits with wisdom and bliss and light, and then shining through the outer layers that surround the spirit, the layers of the soul with all of its thoughts and emotional charges and programming and feelings. That's where most of our trouble happens, is in the soulish mental realm. But that light continues to shine out through that layer into our physical bodies, transforming them actually, because these bodies are not what we may think they are. We think of matter as solid when it's just patterns of energy that are being structured by pure awareness. But as the light that's in us begins to flood our physical bodies, they are transformed. And it shines out into our relationships, and our relationships are healed and transformed. And it ripples out into all of our connections with the outer world and out to infinity. So when one person begins to awaken and that inner light begins to expand from within and shine outwardly, it contributes to the liberation and the transformation of the entire human race and of the world that we live in. So, thanks for being part of the work. The Flowering Heart Blessing comes directly from the Divine. The Divine told Suzanne and me very distinctly, this does not belong to anyone in particular. This is not coming through a master or a saint or an avatar or a spiritual hierarchy or a religious tradition. It's coming directly from me to anyone who asks for it, to receive grace to bring about awakening, transformation, and the flowering of the heart. So that's its purpose and its focus, but it has many wonderful side effects, like the healing of relationships, the healing of your emotions and of your soul. Most of the trauma in life, you may have noticed, is full of trauma. People are talking about it all the time now. That trauma is primarily in the mental body or in the soulish realm. And that's not just something to be to walk away from and leave behind as we transcend into the blissful realms of spirit. The soul itself, the mind itself, is healed by the Divine. And those traumas are healed. And the structures of thought and feeling and programming that were not in harmony with the Divine will become repatterned in harmony with the Divine. And that's when amazing things begin to happen in our lives, when the mental and emotional realm comes into alignment with the spiritual light within us. Game on. So the Flowering Heart Blessing does that. It brings healing to the soul, mental realm, but also to the physical body. So when you're receiving these blessings, if you hold an intent and ask the Divine to pour healing into your physical body, many great healings happen as a result of spiritual blessings like this. You're also instantly initiated by receiving this blessing. So once you've sort of basked in this energy and taken it in, then you're welcome and encouraged to pass it on through intent in meditation or prayer, or with consent. If someone's in your physical presence and you explain the blessing to them, or at least what it's going to do when they receive it, and they want that, then just lightly place your hands on the top of their head and invite the Divine to pour the Flowering Heart Blessing through you, and it happens instantly. There's nothing more you need to do. And it's free. It's pure grace. This is a gift of unconditional love directly from the Divine. The Divine isn't trying to, pay for lands and buildings and amass fortunes, as some spiritual organizations do. But this is a gift purely from the Divine Presence itself to all of us. And because it doesn't belong to any particular spiritual or religious tradition, it will support you deeply on whatever path you're on, whether it's Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, pagan, or something that has no name at all. The Divine affirms the path that's unfolding within you and wants to help. So that's what this is about. We dedicate the first 10 minutes, if you were with us from the beginning, to just resting in silence in the presence and holding space, just inviting the presence. And then after this little bit of explanation that we give about the blessing, we move into a time of questions and answers, preferably about the spiritual journey, even better yet if it's about your spiritual journey. It could be about your spiritual practice, whether it's prayer or meditation or yoga or qigong, or there's so many different beautiful and powerful spiritual practices, and we could all use more clarity and light, I think, as we dedicate ourselves to those things. But anything related to the spiritual journey at all, feel free to ask. And that seems to move the divine to inspire us with insights that we can share with you, and the entire community, the entire satsang benefits from that. So feel free to bring on the tough ones. Oh, and Happy New Year. Yeah, 2022. This is going to be a good year. I don't have any specifics, but I just have this sense that many, many wonderful things are going to be happening this year. I know the last several years have been tough. The last two particularly have been tough for many people. But there's so much light that's breaking forth right now that I have a really good feeling about 2022. And if you're here, and I see that a number of you are, especially if you're on Facebook, if you give us a love or a like, that little thumbs up thing or the little heart, unless you leave a comment in the chat, and then we'll know you were with us. But we love to see who drops in during the satsang, so please do that. We do have a question.
Yay! I love those bubbles.
I do too. So, Joanne asks, what are your thoughts about the afterlife? I'm starting to think about this. Do you think that we are reabsorbed by the divine at some point and lose our individuality? Thanks. There's so many things to say about the afterlife. Because life just goes on. So in a sense, I know what you mean, but in a way there is no afterlife because life never ends. The part of us that's actually alive, I don't take as the brain or the body, or even the mind, with its stories and memories. The part of us that is the source of life within us is our spirit. And that spirit is unbounded by time and space. Spirit can be anywhere and everywhere at the same time. And there is no beginning to spirit, and there's no end to spirit. So this witnessing awareness that is you, that's even pondering these questions, is eternal. So that's the first thing I think to say about the afterlife, is that life is eternal and never coming to an end. So that's my main thought about it. Now, you've asked some very pertinent additional points. Do you think we're reabsorbed by the divine at some point and lose our individuality? I don't think we were ever not absorbed in the divine. For instance, St. Paul said in the book of Acts, in the divine presence we live and move and have our being. We're swimming in the divine. We're made of the stuff of the divine. So we were never separate to be reabsorbed. But I know what you're asking. You're asking about our individuality, our consciousness of being an individual soul. And some of those individual souls in a highly enlightened state of oneness continue through many, many lifetimes. For instance, Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara, the first bodhisattva, has been reincarnating, for millennia now, and has made a commitment as a bodhisattva not to enter into final liberation, which for the Mahayana Buddhist would be to enter nirvana, until every sentient being in this world has been liberated from suffering into the light of freedom, of full enlightenment. So there are those souls. Then there are other souls that track through many lifetimes because we're working through a bunch of stuff that we take with us. There's baggage that persists after death for most souls. So they would go through a life review, and a determination would be made that about what comes next, and for some it could be reincarnation. For others it could be, I'm ready to go into the light and leave all of this behind and merge fully with the one divine source. But here's the thing. In the mind of the divine, or in the consciousness of the divine, you have always been known and will never be forgotten. So even if we could talk about this full absorption, like the term nirvana means to blow out the candle. And that means literally the candle of ego that might cling to attachments and desires that would persist through lifetimes as we grow and flower and evolve and become more and more aware of enlightened consciousness. That part, the ego part of it, the self-centered part of it, the consciousness of separateness, in nirvana, from a Buddhist perspective, the candle of that is blown out and it's done, it's extinguished. But you, as an eternal spirit being that's had quite a journey, are remembered forever in the heart of the divine. And it's so we become more of a we. Again, borrowing from Christian scriptures, there's a reference to we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And this cloud of witnesses are beings that are not incarnate anymore, and they're not reincarnated, and they are completely one with the divine. And there, as with Source, united with Source, and yet there's still a sense of we-ness, of being a cloud of us. So if we begin to see the divine as this sort of collective being, I mean, in India, the one divine has millions of faces. In the Christian tradition, the divine is thought of as manifesting through 3 different, very distinct personalities or persons. And a lot of other traditions look at that and go, the Christians worship multiple gods. No, it's just like in India. And the Christians accuse the Hindu people of worshiping millions of gods. And it's sort of the same thing, that in these various traditions, the divine is seen as having many expressions. So Ganesh, the elephant-headed god, is a merry old soul, and Shiva's very different from that, his father, and you've got Lakshmi, the goddess, of wisdom and abundance. In the Christian tradition, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who is the Divine Mother, the feminine aspect of the divine. But these are all just sort of faces or expressions of one divine being, who in the beginning of the book of Genesis said, "Let us make humanity in our image, after our likeness." So they, Elohim, sometimes translated the gods, created humanity in their own image, male and female. They created they, them, and called them human. So there's a picture right there in Genesis chapter 1, the book that a lot of people think is about the patriarchal God, that makes rules and is terrifying. And it starts with this very profound statement of the gods said, "Let us make humanity in our image, male and female." So there's already this sense of diversity and multiplicity within the Godhead. So why should the unique expression of the divine, which is you, Joanne, or Suzanne, or Michael, or whoever else is out there tonight, why should that, because you're an expression of the divine, why should that be lost in complete and full union? I don't think it ever is. So I hope that helps a little bit. We want to lose the part of our individuality that is damaging and causes suffering, but not the part that is a unique artistic expression of the heart of the divine. I mean, you're there and I'm here for a reason. Evidently, the divine is delighted in all this and loves us unconditionally and says, that's just perfect. And we have a hard time seeing the perfection in it, especially in ourselves. But there it is. Kenneth, Griffiths writes, about my spiritual journey, today is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ken.
Nice.
It's been a while since we saw you face to face, and we will always feel you. And it's good to hear from you, and it's good to have you drop in the satsangs too. Okay.
You want to read those out loud? Because it's part of the thread.
So I'm not sure. Joanne says, consciousness. I feel like I will lose the small self, the ego. And you will heave a huge sigh of relief, and you'll be no less you in that moment than you were before, because the ego has no self-awareness. Even though the word from the Greek sounds like that, it's like I am, but the ego is this limiting structure in the mind that is not real and tries to preserve itself infinitely, which is ridiculous, because you're the witness, and the witness is not the same as the ego. So your awareness will never end. But let's lose the small self as quickly as possible. And it's not all up to us. I realize it's a very organic journey that the divine is orchestrating. But the best thing that can happen is what in India is called Jivan Mukti. Jivan means you're in your body still. And mukti means you're completely liberated from ego. So I realize that a lot of humans probably don't get a glimpse, at this point in human history, don't get a glimpse of liberation from ego until the moment of death. And maybe even significantly thereafter. But more and more people are awakening while still alive. And that's cool, because that's how this life was intended. The divine intended, and as we all come into the next golden age, everyone's going to begin to experience oneness with the divine and freedom from ego. Oneness with each other in total unconditional love without the ego going, I need to protect myself against you. I need to fight with you. I need to prevail over you, or you may do me in. You know, the ego's insane and really damaging, and it means well, except that it's all about self-preservation. So we can shed that right now in this life, and that's why we're pursuing awakening and the flowering of the heart now, and not just like doing good deeds and praying long prayers and hoping and praying it's all going to be great when we heave our last breath. We do not have to. Christ himself said when he came out of 40 days of fasting at the beginning of his ministry, said, wake up and you will see the kingdom of heaven is already here. It's here, right now. It's at hand. But you have to wake up for your eyes to be open to see it. He also said, you need to be converted and become like a little child, or you'll never see it. So it's quite a journey, but that's what we're doing. We want to awaken and shed the small self here and now. And it doesn't need to be terrifying. It was for me. I was just terrified of death. I mean, the body doesn't like death because it's a physical body and it's wired for self-preservation. The mind, though, with its ego, is just terrified of annihilation. And when, as a pure gift, I was consumed in meditation one night with my master by just terror of death. And I felt this surge of Kundalini energy going through the core of my being. And I thought, I'm dying. I'm dying. And then I thought, I'm meditating with an awakened master. Hey, dying right now wouldn't be such a terrible thing. I don't know. The next moment, I was outside of my body, sort of above it and outside of it, looking back down at myself, sitting in the temple in a half lotus, and the body was still struggling with the painful asana, the painful half lotus position. The mind was still cranking, how do I do this? How do I let go? How can I do this? How can I stop the mind? How can I stop thinking? And I was outside of the mind and the body laughing my head off. It was hysterical. It was really funny when I wasn't inside of all that conflict with the mind and the body. And then And the fear, the terror was gone once I was experiencing my original essence. And then I turned away from the body and the mind, and I dissolved in this infinite, some people call it the void, but it was like this infinite ocean of pure, blissful awareness. And I didn't want to come back. I was still aware that I existed, but I was free from body, free from mind, free from ego. And when the master said it's time to go back, I went, oh, I'm not going back there. And I've heard this kind of thing from many people who've had near-death experiences in the hospital or accidents or things like that. And he just said, not on my watch, boy. He pulled me right back into my body. But my feelings about death changed forever that day, because I no longer feared the destruction of the ego or the body. Now, the ego still fears its own destruction. And the body has, the animals have an innate sort of instinctual fear of being killed. But no ego there. Well, I don't think animals have egos.
I don't know, our cats.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, as the older these cats get and the more eccentric, we're rethinking that question about animal egos. But they're not like ours, certainly. They don't engage in the same kind of symbolic structured thought. Rational thought rooted in symbols and that sort of binary stuff that we're stuck in until we transcend duality. I think they're in a much deeper state of oneness with nature. But that doesn't mean that they don't have, they sure have egos.
I think
those
so.
little brats. Hillary writes, like each cell of the body, yes, is separate, but one with the whole body. That's absolutely right.
Exactly. And it's amazing how well the cells in our bodies communicate with each other. And it's just like anything else. It's like if you just let things run the way they're supposed to in divine order, because our bodies know what that divine order is, they run very well and very efficiently until we throw our ego into the mixture and our emotions, and it kind of derails them. It's the same way with humanity. It's like we're all cells of a body trying to work together, but the mind and the ego are keeping us from feeling that unity consciousness and working all together on the planet as a whole.
Years ago, we heard a talk by Dr. Rosedale, who's famous for his work with diabetes but a brilliant mind. And we were in India, and he was explaining the holistic worldview and holistic medicine. And just one point he made, he said, see me standing here. All the cells in my body are individual. They're separate, just like Hillary said, but they're one with the whole body. And as long as they're all communicating with each other and all the systems are working together. What happens when the immune system begins to attack the body? You have the autoimmune disorder, and there are more and more of those these days because the human immune system is quite challenged because of lots of stuff we've been doing. But as long as it's all communicating and working together, everything is fine. Like we've learned recently, in recent years, that there are more neural pathways from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. The heart itself is an organ of perception that's getting myriad neurons of input from the brain and other systems. Pretty amazing stuff. So Dr. Rosedale said, now, if I die right here in front of you, what's happened? What's the difference between when I was standing here and when I was lying there? I know we're talking about, a few seconds, a few minutes. He said, all the cells of my body are still alive. Even though the heart has stopped pumping, All the cells in the heart tissue are still alive. The blood cells are still alive. The brain has stopped firing, but all the brain cells are still alive. What stopped? It's that presence, that that connectedness that enable all the cells to communicate with each other and work together. And I think we could call that the presence. We started with the song tonight by our friend Angelica Schaefer, and it was what?
Fountain of life.
Fountain of life, the life that flows within me. How could it be other than divine? The life that's flowing in my veins. So what leaves is that. And I've been with people who've made their passage, and I could say a lot about it, because in some cases I've been able to actually see their spirit leave their body, which is pretty amazing. But one of the first things that usually happens is the light goes out of their eyes. I mean, their eyes still look the same. They can be clear, they can be, but there's a twinkle, a light in your eye. The Chinese Taoists call that the Shen, which translates as awareness or spirit. And they say that that's the light that lights your eyes. I think it's the life, it's the presence, it's the spiritual awareness that is what makes us the spirit beings that we are. So.
Great question, thanks.
Joanne says, I think that the animals have ego, but maybe not self-aware. Actually, I think they're self-aware.
Our cat was sitting and looking at himself in the mirror the other day.
But maybe not self-aware in the same way that we are. But why are we, not you, Joanne, and not this group tonight, but why are we humans so arrogant that we think that only human animals have the divine spark in them? It's the same life animating the cells of an animal and communicating in the cells of a flower that blossoms. I've heard it said that flowers are in a higher state of consciousness than humans. I don't know, we're not going to argue that. But one of the reasons that's been said is because plants are communal beings. They're not individual egos. Plants are aware of their own existence, but it's an us awareness, not a me awareness. Back to that. So, yeah. That when the different spiritual philosophies that look at the idea that the divine actually dwells in everything. Not only do all this exist in the divine, but that there's a divine spark at the heart of everything. Some say that spark's only in the heart of human beings. That's the Atma, the divine soul within. But other philosophical, esoteric points of view see that divine spark as also being in an animal, being in a tree, being in a rock, being in a mountain, being in a planet, that the planet itself has some awareness of being. Because the entire universe is made of one thing, awareness of being. Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. That's what this is all made of. And so everything in the universe is actually self-aware. The universe itself is self-aware. Planetary systems, the solar system is self-aware. Stars are self-aware. Galaxies are self-aware. And there's much more beyond this physical universe. So many more. So many other planes. Who knows? Might be infinite. Great question.
Was there another comment down there?
Nope. Normally, we'd say, oh, those are fundamental questions. The mind will always come up with these, like, what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And there actually are some good answers to some of those questions, but for the most part, they don't help. They just are the mind tangling us up in these existential questions that are not easily answered or can't even be answered, when we need to be asking the right questions. The right questions are not like, although at a certain point maybe like, how did we get here and why is it like it is? but to ask, how can we get from where we are to where we want to go? Much more important than, why is it like this? Sometimes seeing how we got to where we are can help us know how to get from where we are to where we want to go, but we need to look forward and not get frozen in those kinds of questions. Death is a mystery for most living beings. But I heard once from a beautiful soul in India, a teacher actually, a monk, death is like 10,000 mothers' kisses. I mean, people are anxious about it. If they don't really know what it is and they haven't evolved, they may be so afraid. And when they finally let go and the door comes open, it's like the ultimate beauty and peace, like 10,000 mothers' kisses in the embrace of the divine. And nothing that's real about you will cease to exist. So, there you go. Let's see. Well, More asks a good one over here on Vimeo. What is the difference between I am love or I love myself?
It's kind of splitting hairs.
That might be one of those fundamental questions. In a sense, there is no difference. I mean, once you discover I am, the part of you that is pure being and is love, then you automatically love yourself. Because yourself is love and your nature is love. But love isn't something that we do. It isn't something that we feel. Love is an aspect or a quality of the divine nature itself. The divine presence is love. God is love. It's not that God feels love. I'm sure God feels something. We feel stuff. But a lot of times we mistake love for the emotion of love, or for the hormonal state we experience when our brains are flooded with oxytocin and I'm falling in love with you, and I'm in love with the puppy, and I'm in love with the baby, and I'm in love with that beautiful person. And that hormonal, or even if it's an energetic feeling, is not what love is. Because that kind of love tends to go away when the object of our love is no longer pleasant to us, no longer makes us feel good, but they make us feel really horrible. But the divine love is I am love. God is love. It's not just feels it, and it's certainly not something we do. So we try to love, and we're being told all the time, well, love that thing, love that person, do love, give love. And when really, that is the divine presence itself. So let's give that, and let the presence more and more guide and animate and direct all of our actions. Want to add any?
Nope. It's time to move on.
Time to move on.
Yeah. Thank you, Maury.
And Jennifer writes 42.
42?
Remember that movie? Mm-mm. Never mind.
Okay.
But that is the meaning of life. And that's pretty funny. Okay. So, if your eyes aren't already closed, let's close our eyes and open ourselves to the divine presence within us at the center of our being. You know, all you have to do, because it's there. Christ said, from where he was sitting, said, I'm standing at the door and I'm knocking. If you'll just open the door, I'll come into you and sup with you. Now, I think that's true not only of the Christ, but of any aspect of the divine presence. All we need to do is open the door. Come and get us. The divine presence within you loves you unconditionally. and creates no distance or separation between itself and you. All of that was bad teaching and wrong programming. And it's time. The divine wants us to let go of all of that and know there is no separation between us and the divine. Simply invoke, invite, welcome the presence, and it floods you from within. This presence yearns to embrace you, to draw you into complete oneness with itself, to dissolve our suffering, to fill us with joy and life and light and unconditional love. To heal our souls of all the pains and the charges. It yearns to heal our physical bodies of all disease. Receive the grace that is pouring out to you now. Soak it up. The divine knows exactly what you need and is all powerful. Imagine or visualize that we're sitting together in a circle. With our eyes closed, lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and let us all invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through each of us to all the other participants in the satsang. Know as it's flowing through you to everyone else, it's flowing back to you through them. Now just relax your hands. And when you're ready, you could open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me. Just keep making eye contact with at least one of our eyes continuously. As we begin the light meditation, we're flooded with the presence. The presence begins to pour through us oceans of grace and love and light to bring awakening and transformation. All you need to do is just keep looking, and that light streams in through your eyes into your spiritual heart, fanning the flames of divine life and love already within you higher and higher, bringing fuller and fuller awakening and transformation to you and flowering to your being. Close your eyes now. Meditate for a few more minutes with us as the grace we have all received settles within us. Just keep meditating as long as you want to. You could also find a spot nearby to lie down on your back with your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides with your palms open and turned upward, and just dissolve in gratitude in the presence. That's in yoga, that's called Shavasana. It's actually a yoga pose. It's very beautiful. And it's a great thing to do at the end of spiritual practices, to just lie down like that and let everything dissolve and come into balance. We love you so much.
Much love, light, and blessings until we connect again.
Until we meet again, the divine in us beholds the divine in you.